Hey there, great grower. This is Fritz Westover with Virtual Viticulture Academy and your host at the Vineyard Underground podcast. And I've got a question from the field today that I'd love to share with you. This is a question from a grower in California. This is from Guy, and Guy has a question about shoot thinning here. And so let's get right into it. Guy says, almost every case, I have more than 2 shoots with grapes from a single spur. Should I always take off all but 2? Okay. So, Guy, the big thing to look at here is, first of all, you've done some good pruning. You have what we usually keep as a typical number of buds per spur, which is 2 very clear buds. And if I point here with my pointer, you can see on your 1-year-old cane wood, which is the fruitful wood, you've got 1 bud on the upper position, which grew into a nice shoot. You've got your second bud closer to your older wood. That's your first clear bud position. That's growing a shoot. And then you have this shoot down below, right where the 1-year-old is meeting the 2-year-old wood from below. And this is typically our non-count or 0 bud that we don't count as a fruitful bud during pruning for many varieties. Now, some varieties are fruitful, and indeed in your Pinot Noir, you'll see that the shoot coming from this basal non-count bud actually has some flowers on it, which means it's going to produce a crop. On your photo on the right, you have 2 very clear buds. And the bud at the base here, where I'm pointing my black cursor pointer here, that bud, or non-count bud, we should say, did not push a shoot, which is also typical in many varieties too. So whether or not that basal bud or non-count bud pushes or not really determines whether or not we're going to need to remove some shoots after bud burst. And in this case, we did get a shoot on the right photo here that came from older wood. And one thing we can say is about shoots that come from older wood, older than 2-year-old wood, are typically not as fruitful as shoots that come from 1-year-old wood. In fact, even on 2-year-old wood, if a shoot comes out of that wood from an old latent bud, it's not going to be as fruitful. So our fruitful buds are going to be those that are coming out of our fruitful shoots. So I'm going to use a red drawing tool here just to indicate our bud positions. We have our number 1 position here. That's coming from our first count bud. This is on the right. And then we had a second count bud here above on our 2 bud spur. And then we made a cut there above there. And so we have 2 count buds. And then from down here, coming out of older wood, 2 or 3-year-old wood down here, we have this other shoot. And we typically will remove that shoot because it's not as fruitful. And in fact, we don't see any flowers on that young shoot develop. So we would remove a shoot like that. And that is what we consider shoot thinning. And the timing shown in this photo is a very good time to do that shoot thinning because the shoots are easy to remove by hand. You can see very clearly the shoots and leaves are not very large yet. So it's a good time to get in and do some shoot thinning. Now, if a grower said to me they were trying to bring a position down closer to the cordon, let's say they had a spur that was creeping 12 or 15 inches or 40 centimeters, for example, away from the cordon, you could selectively allow a shoot below to grow and then bring next year that shoot or that cordon position down lower and renew it. However, you'll hear me say many times, I strongly discourage consistently or constantly, I will even say, lowering spur positions because you end up making a lot of cuts in older wood to do that. We want to let those spurs grow in a progressive manner as they develop each year, maybe a ½ inch, maybe 1 inch at the most a year, and let them keep going until the point where they're getting to be an issue for mechanization or other things. But we're not renewing spur positions to a lower spot every year. That would reduce our fruitfulness and increase the number of large pruning wounds, which are negative in the vineyard. On the shoot on the side here, or the spur, I should say, on the left side, you can see we have here our first count bud position here and our second count bud position. Both have pushed nice shoots, and those are fruitful. And this is our non-count position down here in the X. So that's the one we're going to remove from this example. Now, down here, we have another shoot that's likely coming from the next spur position. Generally, our spurs are going to be placed either a closed hand or a wide hand apart. So 4 to as many as 8 inches between our spur positions. And that's how we maintain an open canopy. So I hope these pictures and drawings are helpful for you as a grower. And I'd like to make sure I mention that if you're looking for any other resources, you can certainly find those resources at virtualviticultureacademy.com. You could also listen in for free anytime to learn more about grape growing, wherever you listen to your podcast. at Vineyard Underground Podcast. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And my goal here is to help you to be a better grape grower. So let me know what you think in the comments. Cheers.